Hey, welcome back to Dealer Confidential, where we pull the curtain back on dealership transactions. I'm with my good friend and pal, Mr. Greg. Greg, how you doing today?
Good, Hal. How are you doing?
Excellent, excellent.
It's going to
It's a
be an
great
exciting
day.
show. Tell us what we're going to be doing today.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about dealer real estate as it relates to the package, and quite frankly, it could be actually more valuable than the business, and in many cases, it is. As you know, these dealerships are on very expensive commercial properties in some cases.
Absolutely, yeah. They really are. And that's something we'll be discussing today. But before we get going, I have an email.
Uh-oh.
Yes, this one's from out in Illinois, one of my dealer friends in Illinois.
Illinois.
And he asked, I think, an absolutely perfect question for today's podcast. He asked, will I have to hire a real estate or another broker to broker this deal, or will you guys be able to handle all of the things relying upon real estate purchase, brokering, and everything else concerning the state and everything requirements?
Yeah,
So, great question, I thought.
yeah. So I'm a commercial real estate a licensee in the state of Virginia, in the Commonwealth of Virginia, I should say. And when I get involved in a non-Virginia piece of real estate, say Illinois, for example, I work with a company. I partner with a company and do a referral arrangement so that I can represent the business and the real estate and be legally licensed to do so. So the answer is yes, the broker can do it, but he has to have a partner that's licensed in that state so that we don't get in trouble with any state officials. And you really want the same broker to represent your business and your real estate
Right.
because the two, as we're going to find out today, are a bit interconnected.
Right, and I make it a little bit easier for our buyers. I'm an affiliate of a company called NAI, which is the largest real estate brokerage firm, maybe in the world, but definitely in the United States. And I'm an affiliate with them. So I am a broker. We can sell, we can appraise in all 50 states with their local offices in every state possible. So the answer to our friend out in Chicago is yes. Hal and I are both licensed real estate brokers. We can sell and or appraise properties throughout the United States. And as far as we're concerned, you don't need anybody else. If you feel comfortable with your local realtor who you've been with years, of course, we would try to work with them and see how we could complement each other. And our objective, Hal and my objective, is to make this deal or your deal as easy, as clean, and as efficient as possible. So that's why we try to take out any obstructions that could get in the way of that. So let's talk about real estate.
Yeah, I guess the first thing I would say is dealerships are special use properties. They're more valuable as a dealership than they are anything. All right. Now there are pieces of land in downtown, Philadelphia or St. Louis or wherever, where the land value is better used as something else. But typically the real estate is a valuable piece of the component of a dealership sale, and as such needs to be treated as a special use property when you're getting it appraised. And anytime that you transact real estate, there will be a real estate appraisal, and it's mostly sold for appraised value, right? So the bank's going to take security interest in the real estate, and they're going to lend the dollars that come back on that appraisal. So you want to use a company that's familiar with dealership valuations, and you want the dealership, the subject property, to be compared to other dealerships, not Costco's and not bowling alleys and not hardware stores. Those are all commercial buildings, but they're not special use dealership buildings. So it's important that the comparables are dealership properties, preferably franchise dealership properties. Why franchise? Because we want shops, body shops, stalls, the things that you're going to see on a dealership property that you may not see on an independent property, an independent dealership property.
Exactly. And one of the other things that I think is important, and I've had dealers talk and ask questions about this all the time, is zoning. And the question is, well, obviously we're running a new car franchise out of this property. When I buy it, is there a chance that the property is going to be rezoned and it won't be zoned for automotive any longer? So how's that for a question?
Well, it's. I mean, it's a good question. I guess it could always come up, but typically the municipality will have a plan, a business plan, a growth plan, and more times than not, if you're a dealership property and you're paying lots of taxes to be a dealership property, the city's going to say, well, "Wait a minute here, let's let's not rezone this piece of property. We like the revenue that comes out of the dealership and the taxes that they pay." And I haven't seen it where a viable commercial dealership property gets rezoned for something else.
Yeah, I haven't either, but there's always that chance of public domain, and the town wants to put in high-rise living or apartments or something like that. But we'll know that well in advance, and so will the selling dealer know that well in advance because he's very familiar with his local municipality. He probably deals with all of the officials on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So we know that ahead of time. So you're not going to be caught as a purchaser, in this case, flat-footed.
Yeah, and that more likely is the OEM might have an issue with that location because the growth is out on the corridor and not in the town anymore. And even though the dealership may be a vital, profitable, high customer satisfaction operation, I've got a dealership right now that I know the OEM is not going to accept that location. Why? Because the competitive dealerships have already gone out on the corridor where the traffic flow is and where the retail centers are, and these competitors have already upgraded their facilities. So the lone OEM deal that's in the downtown area, older area, where parking's tough and where circulation's tough and inventory storage is tough and there's bangs and dents on the cars because it's hard to get in and out, and there's very little customer parking, et cetera, et cetera. I know that when I send the package into the OEM, they're going to have a stipulation that the dealership moves in 5 years or 7 years, whatever I can negotiate.
Now, that leads into another question. The manufacturer has the final say in the whole process. What happens if the manufacturer doesn't like the deal? Not necessarily the purchaser, not who I represent, but what happens if the manufacturer just says, hey, you know what? There's too many Ford dealers in this area. What happens next?
Well, you get into something called a right of first refusal. Most of the OEMs over time have upgraded their sales and service agreements with the dealers, and they have something in there called a ROFR, for short, right of first refusal. The deal will come into the OEM and they'll exercise their right of first refusal. They'll match the deal to the very nth letter. The seller will get their proceeds from the sale as they would from a buyer, although there's caveats to that, and I can talk to that in a minute. And they'll shut the point and they'll reassign it to the adjacent neighboring dealers. To your point, they feel like they're over-dealered and they can cover the market without representation in that store. Where it gets tricky on the ROFR is the real estate piece. I've seen them not do the real estate. I've also seen them do the real estate. So every deal is considered differently, and you got to play the hand that you're dealt. The other thing is used vehicles. They're not going to do anything with your used vehicles, right? So whereas the buyer on an independent sale may be buying the used vehicle inventory, the OEM, when they exercise a ROFR, because typically the used car inventory is not in the agreement. It's in the agreement, but the prices haven't been set because they move, up and down. Uh, I've seen it where dealers have to, get stuck with used vehicle inventory because the OEM has exercised the right of first refusal. It's a tricky, it's a tricky thing. It's happening more and more to the smaller rural markets as the factories want to consolidate their dealer network, have fewer points, and commonize their ownership among fewer dealer organizations.
Yeah, from a buy side, I'll give you, and I think you know that I do this. I really school the dealer into looking for alternative locations, not alternative dealerships. But I always say, hey, there is a remote chance that the OEM is going to say, well, we really don't like you on this side street. We want you to go, like you mentioned, Hal, onto a highway, which is only like 3 miles away. Yeah. So what I do is I either ride it with the dealer or I'll have the dealer go out and I say, canvass the area. See if you could find maybe a more suitable location if and when we may have to move this franchise. Because like you said before, Hal, the manufacturer may say, you've got 5 years in location A, but in 5 years, we really would like you to move to the highway. We will give you the franchise today. We'll grant it. But in 5 years, you got to promise to move the franchise. And if you don't, it's coming back. That does happen. So that's why I usually school the dealer, who's more familiar with their area than we are, to go out, look for a suitable counter location, and keep it in your back pocket. You may not need it. You may never need it. But just in case, in order to get that OEM approval, you may have to present it and say, hey, we've got a right of first refusal on this property that was a shopping center and it's perfect, so et cetera, et cetera. And that may push the OEM over the top and say, okay, you know what? These guys have thought of everything. We like the way they think.
Yeah. No, good points. It's, again, we talked about this on the previous podcast. You do your deal, you work hard, you get the deal together, and then it goes to the OEM, and then there's another deal that awaits for you, right? So you got multiple stages here of negotiation, and that's why we've said it. Don't do this alone.
Right.
Don't do this by yourself. Hire someone that's been through the trenches, that knows how the OEM thinks, and can position you for the best possible outcome with all of these factors that we're talking about that could come up.
Little bit of a promotion. You will see in this podcast, you'll see a QR code popping up randomly throughout our presentation. Click on the QR code. It is hopefully your answer to all your questions and your opportunities and your inopportunities to purchase your franchise and or sell your franchise. So the QR code will be at the beginning, middle, and end. Click on it. It will go right into our database. Tell us who you are. Tell us what you want. Tell us if you have any questions. You could also do that by subscribing on YouTube for our YouTube channel. But we figured that the QR code is going to be a lot simpler for our dealers and saves a little bit of time. So when you see it, that's what it's there for. Click on it. Register with us, because we are also going to be sending out Hal's famous white paper to all the people who register with us. And the white paper is worth its weight in paper, that's for sure.
Absolutely. While I'm thinking about the OEM, as you were doing that little commercial, which, by the way, I appreciate, because we do want to also get ideas for future podcasts from those folks as well, because we think these things are important, but we really want to know what they think is important. But the OEM, in addition to the location, you're going to hear is this store image compliant? Right? They'll use that, or does it meet the factory trust mark? And as Greg knows from his OEM days, the OEM will sit in the very storied towers that they all occupy, and they will think up ways of coming up with new designs, interesting color palettes, marble floors, cushy, customer lounges, etc. And they'll spring this on the dealer every, I don't know, 5 years, too often. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
When I was with Ford, we always wanted the best and brightest, and every 3 years. But these facility upgrades, they cost money, and there's got to be a business case around these things. So if you're buying a store that's already had that investment,
Yeah.
you're getting something that you probably don't appreciate, because the OEM could, if the store is big enough and it's in a high visibility market, they're going to want to take the opportunity to use the sale as leverage to get you to invest into a facility upgrade to raise the standard to the current program that may be in effect. And that program changes, I don't know, 3, 5, 7 years, when the OEM dictates.
Yeah, I mean, we held that as not even as a bargaining chip. It's no bargaining chip. You either do it or you don't. So when I was with BMW, we went through, like you just said, a number of major upgrades, and it's called virtual identity, VI. So if you hear that term VI thrown around, that's what it is. It's the manufacturer's desire to have you upgrade your facility to their corporate specifications. And as Hal just mentioned, some of these corporate modifications are millions and millions of dollars to invest in your building, like Hal said before, in furniture, in IT systems, in Palm Pilots, and all, like BMW has, the wizards and everything else that are at the dealership. It's all part of it. And from my side, from a buy side, the dealer purchaser has to buy into this. If they don't buy into every aspect of it, the manufacturer just says, hey, we're not interested in you. They're looking for partners. The OEM is looking for a partner in that dealership, in that city, in that state, and in that part of the country. That's what they're looking for. And if you meet all those requirements, then you get your OEM license. Now, what Hal and I do is we know what the manufacturer is going to be looking for. We have worked with almost all the manufacturers. Hal and I have been with some of the biggest OEMs in the world, and we kind of know what they want. We do have the meetings ahead of time. We do go through a process saying, it's almost a negotiation, pre-negotiation. Okay, what are you looking for? What do you want? What do you expect? Those are 3 questions that we always ask the manufacturer. What they're looking for is one thing, but what they expect is another. Okay, the looking for is 3 to 5 years down the road. What they expect may be at closing, that you need the new furniture, the new computer systems,
Right.
the new parts system, the whole 50 yards. Hal and I take care of that for you. We'll give it to you. We'll give you in a nutshell what it is. We'll also figure out what it's going to cost you. And leading into appraised value, I think we have to touch upon that today, Hal.
Yeah.
What is an appraised value, and how do I get an appraised value of, number one, the franchise? We talked about that a little bit, I think, on show 1. But then what about appraisal of the property? What's involved with that?
Yeah, and that gets back to the qualified dealership real estate appraiser that the bank is going to pick, right? And they've got a list of the ones that they feel are independent, okay? Because that's what they're looking for, an independent assessment, not what you're willing to pay or not what the seller's charging, but it's what that independent appraisal comes back for. That's part of it. The buyer pays for that, and that's typically the price that they pay for the real estate. It's the appraised value. I mean, in most cases, right? And then the other thing that the bank's going to do in this process is they're going to order what's called a phase 1 environmental study, and they're going to be doing a review of the property and the history of the property with respect to environmental cleanliness, underground tanks, cleanser, oil treatment, etc. And the EPA has a website. Some of this is documented. Some of the older stores, it's not documented. Had a situation come up on a deal. The EPA website showed an underground tank. luckily, the dealer was well ahead of this issue, and in his top left-hand drawer, he pulled out a big stack of paperwork, which actually documented the removal of that tank. It was dated, it was time stamped, and it saved me from about 6 weeks of aggravation trying to prove that the facility was clean.
Yeah.
So phase one is kind of the first. It's a more of a paper exercise. Some are a little bit more rigorous than others, but it's a study of whether the facility is clean, and if there's something that gets uncovered in phase one, then there's something called a phase two, which you don't really want to ever get to. But that involves drilling, boring, taking soil samples, sending it to a lab. They study the dirt. These guys in the white coats with the slide rules in their pockets and the very thick glasses. And then they send a report out that says, this is how you clean up this mess. Okay. Whether the present dealer did it or the one that he bought it from, but he didn't catch it. But whoever's owning it right now and wants to transfer it has to remediate the facility and get it EPA approved, because the bank doesn't want to secure an asset that doesn't comply with EPA cleanliness and regulations.
Well, that's a perfect lead-in. We're working, Hal and I are working a deal. I keep bringing up our Pennsylvania dealer. We're working a deal in Pennsylvania. This is a little bit different. He is not purchasing the property. He's getting an option to purchase the property, but he's not purchasing the property day one. So the other day he asked us, well, this environmental issue, phase one, how does that affect me? Because I may never own this property. It's going to be owned by the dealer principal as the landlord, and I'm just going to own the franchise. Am I still held responsible? How's that?
Well, yeah, I mean, if I'm advising this particular guy, even if he's leasing, he would probably want to get a phase one to prove that he wasn't the one that messed up this facility. If it comes back dirty, right? Then he says, wait a minute, before I lease it, you got to clean it up, because I'm going to be held responsible for the time that I am leasing this property and potentially wanting to buy this property.
Right, with an option.
So whether you're leasing or buying, it's really important to have clean dirt where you're operating.
And I think for our listeners, almost every deal that Hal and I do will include some sort of option. If the property landlord, or I should say the dealer principal, current one, wants to lease it, maybe the lease goes into a family trust and it's revenue for his kids for the next 15 years or whatever. But we always try to build in the option. And the option is usually at market value at some period of time. So let's say in 5 years, the purchasing dealer, my guy, is able to say to the dealer, I'm going to take advantage of the option that you gave me 5 years ago, and I'm going to buy the property at fair market value. Here are 2 appraisals. You can do your own appraisal. Let's just do this. So we also, Hal and I also build in that type of verbiage into our contracts. And it's meant to protect, in my case, it's meant to protect the buyer. We want to make sure the buyer is covered every which way.
Yep. And speaking of, you mentioned market value. The other thing that I'll bring up, the question comes up, does the real estate value ever affect the business value? And the answer is it can. As Greg has mentioned before, the business and the real estate are generally set up in 2 different companies, and there's a lease. Whether they may be owned by the same person, but those 2 entities, there's a lease between it, an operating lease between the dealership and the company that owns the property. And depending on the rent that's charged, if the rent charged is less than the market value rent of the value of that property, then it's going to be a deduction to the cash flow, the recasted cash flow, and it's going to impact the business multiple, which will impact the business value. Right. If the market value rent is more than or the rent expense is more than the market value rent, then it's the excess over the market value rent is actually an additional add back that supports and generates a higher business value. So market value rent and the rent that's expensed between the two companies does impact business value. And
Right,
so,
and that's something
you know,
that we talked about, I think, in podcast two. It's a lot more intricate than what we're proposing or discussing right now.
yeah,
We need to get into it with you. It's not something that we could just discuss in a podcast. It's so intricate. It's so crazy. Especially, we talked a little bit, well, I'm not going to get into it now, a little bit about financial statements and how does the dealer represent that in his financial statement, and how are you going to represent it moving forward? So again, that's a discussion that you'll have to have with us, assuming that we work for you and we move this forward. That's a complicated one. Don't let anybody else get involved with it.
yeah, it comes to the question of where the dealer is taking its profits. Is he taking it on the business side of the ledger, or is he taking it on the real estate side of the ledger? So real estate, I got to tell you, I mean, in my 40 years, I think a lot of dealers that I've called on, they're land barons. I mean, the car business is a great profit machine, but the real estate that they own makes up the vast majority of the net worth of these dealerships.
Right. And I hate to say it,
especially in the metros.
Our buyers, Hal, are paying that price for the grandfather or great-great-grandfather who purchased that in 1940, 1950, whatever, after the war, for pennies on the dollar. So that we have to deal with it. It's a fact of life. Just ahead of time, even before we get involved with you, you got to understand that there are some things that you're just going to say, wow, how do I do this? How do I get around? Well, sometimes you can't, but we work with you to help you get through it, not get around it. You got to get through it if you want to buy that franchise. So
the two biggest costs in the dealership. Final point. Two biggest costs are people and rent. We'll talk about next time the dealership value drivers, but having the right competitive rent factor is a big value driver for a store. If you're in a very expensive facility that you can't pay off, that's going to be a real knock when it comes to sell.
Yeah, we got about 4 minutes left, but I just want to touch upon two other things that we sort of kind of touched on, I think, podcast 2 and podcast 3. If
Go
your
Lions.
dealership,
Go Lions.
Nice. If your dealership happens to have a body shop affiliated with it or attached to it, that is a whole another animal, lack of a better word, to deal with. You're dealing with EPA standards, special EPA standards. You're dealing with phase 1 and maybe phase 2 if the body shop has been there for a long time. A lot of these people have drainage systems that were built in the 1960s. We'll talk about that. But what we want to do is we want to make sure that you're protected. And more importantly, that body shop is a huge potential profit center for you. It could be a bit of a hiccup, bit of a problem, but gosh, if it has a body shop, a lot of the dealerships that I had, Al, had body shops. Amazing the profit centers, and more importantly, your get readies. If you get a used car in and you own the body shop, that car could be on your front line in a matter of maybe hours, sometimes early as a day or two. So big factor. So as we get into this a little bit more in the next couple of podcasts, we'll be talking about all the other advantages that the dealership may have attached to it that at first is a brush past. But then when you dig a little bit deeper, you take a look at those profit potentials. You take a look at those profit centers. All of a sudden, you not only have a service department, you have a body shop. You have a remote, repair shop that goes out, trucks that go out, remote fender and body bumper company that you own within that body shop or within the dealership. So there's a lot of other things we're going to be talking about. Hal, we got about a minute left. Summary for today, and what are we going to be talking about next week?
Well, the summary is the real estate component of the dealership sale is big. It's very important. There's lots of pitfalls. Don't leave home without it, just like American Express. Don't do this without a broker or somebody that knows what they're doing on the real estate side. You can get into some massive expenses. Um, Next podcast is all about what drives value in a dealership. Why are some dealers more valuable than other dealers? What are the components that we see driving value in dealership sales?
Fantastic. Okay, I got to do one shout out. Shout out.
Yeah.
My new best friend. His name is Mark Russo from Subaru Corporate. He was my guest lecturer last night in my class, and he was fantastic. He talked about new Subaru products, old Subaru products. He gave our students a really, really good overview of EVs, hybrids, and he touched upon hydrogen quite a bit, which was
Wow.
very interesting because Subaru is really a certain type of innovator. So shout out to my new best friend, Mark. Thank you. You were absolutely fantastic. I really appreciated it.
I want to come to class. I
You
want to
can.
be on your team, Greg. I want to
Well,
shout out here in a few weeks.
okay, we could do that. We could do it remotely, or else you could take the ride up to New York and visit us. It's great. Thanks, Hal.
All right. Thank you, Greg. Thank
Look
you
forward
for
to it.
joining, and we'll see you next time
Oh,
out.
last thing, QR code. Remember, click on it. Out comes Hal's Magic white paper. Number two, you'll get our weekly update, our newsletter. And if you don't do that, please do. Always look at YouTube channel and subscribe on the YouTube channel for us. You'll get everything from there as well. Thanks, everybody.
Sounds good. Thanks,
Thanks,
Greg.
Hal.
See you, man.